The recording has started. This chick every time. Okay, turn your mics off. Okay, so we're gonna get started. Tonight's class is titled Our Ancestors. Now, let me explain why I chose that title. I chose the title Our Ancestors not because of ancestry or DNA or genealogy. I chose the words Our Ancestors because these are individuals that dealt with the same issues that we're dealing with, and their stories and what they did and what they stood for, each one of them has a puzzle piece for us that's relevant to the process, to this process. I don't want to say the process because it's surely not general. But let's get into it. This is going to be fun. Okay, first, Thoth, the Atlantean. Okay, so in this class, I'm going to talk it out, and I'm going to let you guys read, right? Because I like talking things out. You know, I like scripts. So you guys could do the reading. I'm going to talk it out and explain to you how all of this happened and what I learned from these guys. So, another thing. The reason why I used these, the order that I used was because it's chronological. So I'm going all the way back from the most ancient to the most recent. Okay, and so let me remember how I ran into the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. I was studying the Bible, and I was researching the tablets that the Holy Commandments, that the Ten Commandments were on. And I ran into the Emerald Tablets of Thoth by accident. And I opened it and started reading it. And the rest is history. Right? But I learned that Thoth was actually called he was called the Thriceborn, and that's because, and I'm going to get into Hermes later, but there's an individual called Hermes the Thriceborn, and you know, the information that Hermes shared with everyone was actually the knowledge and wisdom that was taught by Thoth, because Hermes was Thoth in a third reincarnation, because it is said that Thoth knew how to do that. Right? Now, Thoth was an ancient Egyptian. I call him a master, but he was called a god, right? But they were definitely not immortal, okay? And there's only one God, right? But what happens is people of primitive times, right, they did not know how to describe the ancient advanced technology that they were witnessing. And so in ancient Egypt, if somebody pops up with a laser, right, or a stun gun, right, you're the god of lightning now, because how did he do that? You know, the lightning came from his hands. That's how, yeah, and you could do that now, today. You could go like to certain places, remote places on the planet, where there are pure tribes that have not been infiltrated by modern society, and You could go there with a stun gun, okay? You will be the god of lightning today, okay? Seriously. Right? But anyway, so, um, Thoth created a book called The Emerald Tablets, and he was one of the first teachers, or should I say, one of the first heroes, right, in this battle of good versus evil. And from studying his book, I could say I was shocked. So I would tell everybody, in the class, really to read this book, man. And I'm going to give you everybody's book. So when we go over all these individuals, I'm going to give you the books that they wrote, right? Okay. Um, let's see here. Oh, she put the. She's okay. All right. So these are excerpts from the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, right? Now, I'm going to read, and now the reason why I'm showing these is because I want to, I want to point out to everybody the puzzle pieces and the relevance of good versus evil in the past and good versus evil now, okay? And we just went over what's going on, and this is definitely a continuation of the last class. Okay, I'm going to interrupt myself right now, and I'm going to say that anybody that watches these classes, listens to these classes, studies the information from these classes in order from the first class, to the last class in order, something's gonna happen to you, okay? Something's gonna wake you up. There's a light bulb's gonna light up. Something's gonna happen, right? You're gonna change. It's gonna change you for the better, of course. But you're gonna see. You're not gonna be the same, okay? So anyway, this particular part of the class I am gonna read, okay? And I'm going to read some stuff from King James too. Now, it says here in the Emerald Tablets that far in the past, before Atlantis existed, men there were who delved into darkness, using dark magic, calling up beings from the great deep below us. Forth came they into this cycle. Formless were they, of another vibration, existing unseen by the children of earthmen. Only through blood could they have formed being. Only through man could they live in the world. This is thousands and thousands of years ago. Okay? 30 maybe, something like that. Just bear with me, okay? This paragraph, these few lines here are explaining the possession, the infection that we discussed in the last class. It's being described to you right here from ancient tablets, okay? We're going to continue. In ages past were they conquered by the masters, driven below to the place whence they came. But some there were who remained hidden in spaces and plains unknown to man. Lived they in Atlantis as shadows, but at times they appeared among men. Aye, when the blood was offered, forth came they to dwell among men. I know you're all doing this yourselves. I don't have to do it for you. Right? Okay. In the form of man, they moved they among us. but only to sight were they as are men. Serpent-headed when the glamour was lifted, but appearing to man as men among men, which is that they look like us, but they're not, but they're not us. Okay? Okay. Crept they into the councils, taking forms that were like unto men. We're gonna stop there. Crept they into the councils. Okay? That just says that they infiltrated government, right? Okay? The whole formless, were they of another vibration, existing unseen by the children of earth men? Yes, because they're microscopic and we can't see them, right? Okay? Only through blood could they have formed being. And interestingly enough, right? Interestingly enough, I don't care whether it's the summoning of a demon or parasites or viruses, bacteria. Blood is necessary. Blood is necessary. Put it together yourselves. You can contemplate on that one for hours, right? But in the form of man, they moved they among us, but only to sight were they as our men. I told you guys to watch The Matrix. I told you guys to watch They Live, right? So what is being described here is, I don't want to say equivalent to, because there are some differences, but it's something like They Live. And what I'm saying is that the concept of They Live is very real. And this was written on ancient tablets. This was etched into ancient tablets of a material that scientists still don't know what it is yet. It was green, but they don't know what it was. And this is one of our ancient ancestors warning us. Today, whoever came after them, right? They were warning about these things that we're dealing with today. Fine, the information has been twisted and turned and made opposite and turned upside down and hidden and fragmented, but these ancient masters were trying to warn us about all of this, and they knew that we would be dealing with it. And the universe so has it. Fate made it so that everyone here is to know the truth. And so the first thing I would like to say before we continue is definitely, for sure, read the Emerald Tablets of Thought. If you have any problems reading it, if there's anything you do not understand, just ask me, man. All of these individuals, all of their books, I know like the back of my hand, and you can ask me whatever you want. Okay? Now, next I'm going to cover the Jedi, right? And no, I don't mean the Star Wars Jedi, right? But George Lucas definitely got his idea from these ancient masters who were called the Jedi, right? They were priests, And I would say that I'm going to say tonight that what it is about them that is relevant to the process is that they were priests, and they also dealt with they dealt with evil on an energetic level, right? Not only that, but they're the ones, and they were from Atlantis, okay? They're the ones that taught who were the individuals that were called gods. They were the children of the individuals from Atlantis, and they were from Atlantis. And so that's where all of the ancient advanced technology in Egypt came from, and the technology of building the pyramids, and all of that came from the Jedi priesthood, right? Okay, and the knowledge and wisdom from Atlantis. Now, they knew then, and I don't want to say, let me not, I think I said that wrong. I don't want to say they knew then. I would rather say that electromagnetic radiation, negative energy, okay, was being used against mankind way back in ancient times. Mind you, we're finding ancient advanced technology in the ground all the time that we can't copy. That that there's we've Mankind has dug up things that we can't create still today. Mind you, mankind still can't copy a pyramid yet. Not yet. And the knowledge of all of these amazing things came from the Jedi priests and knights. So the relevance is that we're dealing with these things on an energetic level, and if we don't correct that, right? If we don't deal with these things on an energetic level, we will be weak, and that affects our psyche, that affects our spirit, that affects our body. And really, it's almost like the saying that if you're not healthy, like it's like if you want to start a business and you want to become wealthy and leave stuff for your children and all that, but if you don't take care of your body, right, and you're in the hospital all the time, how are you going to make the money? How are you going to enjoy it? How are you going to share it, right? If you're sick all the time, right? So it's kind of the same concept. They dealt with these things on an energetic level, and they dealt with things on an ecclesiastical level. Okay? Now, we spoke about Thoth, right? Um, the Jedi knights and priests continued on throughout ancient Egypt, all the way up to King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table and the Knights Templar. So they were very successful, okay, and it became a culture. So it was a way of life. It was it was a culture. It wasn't a religion, but it was a culture. So I would say they had a belief system, but I wouldn't call that a religion. Um, so they carried on this knowledge and passed it down. And what happened was, I'll tell you what happened to this knowledge when, you know, the reason why it disappeared is because what happened was the Masons, the Illuminati, got their hands on the information and they use it for evil. And they keep this information from us so that we have, I can't say have no weapons against them, but I would say so that we don't have possession or knowledge of some of our more powerful defenses and offenses against them. So they hide the information, they hide the tools, they hide the wisdom, and they keep it for themselves, and they twist it, they use it for evil. And, that's been going on since the beginning of the rebellion that we discussed in the last class, right? So I need you guys to study the Jetty and how they did things. It's not a lot of information out there. The Jetty culture is extremely private. The signs of it are all over the place. Star Wars, the ancient Egyptians, the rods that the Egyptians are holding, the ancient Egyptian masters are holding in their hands. There's a lot of remnants and clues of their existence, but there's not a lot of information out there. Okay, so next we get to Christ, because now, and mind you, I said earlier that I was going over these individuals in chronological order, and there's a reason for that, because when you look at the succession of individuals and the information about them, like I said, you're going to see a pattern. Okay? Mind you, the Jedi Knights, right, that persisted after the ancient Egyptians studied their ancestors' knowledge and wisdom. They studied what Thoth put forth. They studied all of these things and carried that on, right? Now, Jesus, it is known that he studied in the Egyptian mystery schools. And so what we find is that he studied some of this same knowledge and wisdom. And so that is to put together for you guys the order, the chronological order. Now, we know who Christ is. We went over this in the last class, and I'll start getting passionate about it and spend an hour on Christ by itself. But I did that already. So, let's get into the relevance of Christ in this process. Okay? Christ is our Redeemer, our Savior. But those words are not what the 501c3 666 churches promote. See, what they do is they twist things in such a way that it pisses people off. Ooh, everybody likes that part. They're like, yeah, yeah. Right? Yeah. No, seriously. I'm going to tell you what's going on with that. Okay? The United States is a business, right? The gang is called the states. The states are a gang, right? They're called the United States. The states are the gang. The gang members are the states, right? And all their little underlings under them. But the states as entities, they are the gang. Okay? And when it comes to Christ being our Redeemer, right? The states create businesses, and they can only create businesses. The states cannot create churches, right? So the state creates businesses that go into business to look like churches because they can't create churches. So these are businesses. And if these businesses are set up churches, then looking like a church is their business. It's common sense and logic. Shocking, but it's common sense and logic, right? And what they do is their job, their business is making God look bad. Yeah. They do stuff like have sex with your husband and your daughter, and they steal, and they do all these things openly. They get caught on purpose, right? So that people get pissed off with God. Yes, they do these things that get caught on purpose to make God look bad, when these churches have nothing to do with God or Christ or any of that. Okay? So, when I say Savior, when I say Redeemer, I am not using these words the same way that these imposter churches use these words. So let's get into these words by lawful definition. One who redeems or ransoms, the Savior of the world, Jesus Christ. Note, God's violated law is the respect of persons. To be redeemed in all law from this violation and from the bondage of sin is the goal of the follower of Christ's teachings. But they must declare this in the redemption process. Redemption is to deliver us from evil, of demonic possession, meaning to deliver us from the person. Okay, you starting to see the order and why I'm doing it this way? Savior, one that saves or preserves, but properly applied only to Jesus Christ, the Redeemer, who has opened the way to everlasting salvation by his obedience and death, and who is therefore called the Savior by way of distinction, the Savior of men, the Savior of the world. General Washington may be called the Savior, but not the Savior of his country. That's interesting. That's interesting that Lola added that. But yeah, okay, so, we discussed Christ and his mission, his story, and as far as the process is concerned, it is through baptism. Let me not say baptism. Let me discuss what comes before baptism. What opens the door for baptism is that you believe that God exists. You believe that somebody had to be first, right? You also believe that that first intelligent being that ever existed created another being, and that being cared about us so much that that being came here himself to save us from the crap that happened in ancient Mesopotamia. We could have been wiped out. I don't want to get into this again, but we could have been wiped out for what happened and for what we were becoming. And somebody came here, Michael came here himself and said, Dad, listen, I think that they're worth it. And so I'm going to show you that they're worth it. And I will sacrifice myself to show you. And, being saved, all that's required is believing that somebody did that. And in different countries, on different planets, his name might be different. Some people might say Yahshua, some people might say Jesus, some people might say Joshua, right? Some people only say Christ. Some people say Christ Michael. So the point is that somebody was here. Somebody was here that was sent here. And that individual cared about us so much that he sacrificed himself so that we wouldn't be wiped out. I believe that. It doesn't matter what this individual's name was. I believe that somebody was here that cared about us that much. And the reason why I can believe it is because I care about us that much. So I know that there was somebody else here that cared about us that much. I know that individuals are sent here to help. I know that. And so when you go back to those times, if you deleted Christ from those times, who was here that cared about people that much? There wasn't. So it had to be somebody. Right, right. So all you have to do to be saved is believe those two things. Somebody was first, and somebody was here that cared about us that much. And that was God's son that did that. That's it, man. So let's move on. Now, Zoroaster. Okay. Here's the deal with Zoroaster. Okay? Alright, Zoroaster was, I would say, right, to give you a more accurate description of who Zoroaster was one of the descendants of the Jedi. And he was one of the first to expound upon the knowledge and wisdom taught by Hermes. Okay? Now, based on what I studied, what is called the occult, which just means hidden knowledge, okay? It's not cult, it's occult, right? Okay, those two words are very different. But the what's called natural magic, the study of natural magic and alchemy and all of that stuff, yeah, Zoroaster taught that. That's where that came from. So when you study Zoroaster and what he taught, he was like the one of the founding fathers of alchemy and natural magic. Also, when it comes to countering evil and their spellings and their words and their seals, Zoroaster was the one who taught us one of the first individuals to teach mankind how to counter that on paper, right? Not using counter spells, right? Not using spells and stuff, but using natural magic, using positive symbols with positive energy, seals with positive energy. And so what we know now, most of the things that we know now that have been, watered down, of course, a lot of that knowledge came from Zoroaster. So I would say also that all of these, and I don't want to criticize anybody, but a majority of these books on magic with seals and symbols and all that stuff in it is really like, I would say, I would say is the difference between a McDonald's French fry and an organically grown potato, right? Um, Zoroaster taught the organically grown potato, And these books with natural magic in them and seals and symbols and all that stuff, they are the McDonald's French fries. Okay. Now it gets super deep. Now please excuse the this is just an ancient I'm not going to say ancient, I would rather say medieval painting of Saint Cyprian. Now, Saint Cyprian, right now we're starting to get into the demon hunters, the ones who actually, you know, and I'm not going to say these other individuals didn't, combat evil, right? But when it comes to hunting them down, going out looking for them and, dealing with them on that level, Saint Cyprian was very pertinent when it comes to the good versus evil art, because Saint Cyprian, right, what made him famous was that he was a demon hunter, but he used magic against magic. He used, not magic against magic. He used, how can I say it? He studied demonology and what demons do and what magicians and witches do. He used some of it to fight against it, right? And he met a woman, Justina, and the highlight of the story of Saint Cyprian is that he converted. And when I say converted, I want to say that he was one of the first that was recorded to leave the public and enter the private. Saint Cyprian became baptized and, and began to follow Christ. And he suffered what we studied is called a civil death, meaning the person, he's one of the first individuals that has been recorded to have killed the person by becoming baptized, and suffering a civil death. So when you study Saint Cyprian, I'm going to send you his book, his information, and you'll be able to see what he did, why he did it, and of course, like, a lot of the greats, him and his wife, because of what they were and what they did, they were killed. The Bob Marley JFK thing happened to them. And so he is important to study because he actually initiated the process of leaving the public and entering the private through baptism and status change. The Van Helsing family. Yeah, I took a deep breath here. This is a goosebumpy. It's goosebumpy talking about this here. But the Van Helsings dealt with the infection, right? But they were dealing with the infection through their hosts, meaning that they knew that the men and women that were enslaving mankind and, you know, the cause of the corruption and the evil and wickedness, they knew what was going on in regards to the parasites and the possession, the infection. This family knew this. And so they went out and they hunted the infected. In the very many forms that the infected took and take. Okay? Still happens today. Now, the Van Helsing family created and left records of what these beings were and the positions that they took in society in the times in their lifetimes, because there were different Van Helsings that left records, you know, and these were at different times in history, but they all had a legacy of leaving records of what beings they dealt with in particular, you know, because what happens is, and I know you guys don't know much about this, but what happens is when you get into deliverance ministry and, you know, demon hunting, I don't want to say demon hunting, but what it is that you go out and you remove negative energies and entities. You try to change negative energy to positive energy wherever you go and spread that. And what happens is, and I don't know why it works this way, but you run into, it's like a law of averages, you know, and you'll run into more of one thing than the other. Like you'll run into more witches than you would vampires or werewolves, or you'll run into more vampires than you'll run into witches, or you'll run into more sorcerers than you run into witches or anything else, or you'll run into more, you know. So they left records of the specific beings that they dealt with at those times that they knew were infiltrating society. Okay? So you guys can study the Van Helsing family and look up their books. And I will send you information, so don't worry about this. Now, Martin Luther. Okay, pay attention to the chronological order and the information and what these guys are and what they did. You know, Martin Luther, because you have to now, mind you, in the previous class we discussed what's going on. Everything's connected. I connected all these classes and set them in a certain order on purpose. Okay? Now, Martin Luther was one of the first individuals to expose that the devil created a house, a church, in honor of himself. Martin Luther was one of the first individuals to figure that out and expose it publicly, which is super duper ballsy, but nonetheless, Martin Luther was one of the first individuals that exposed that the Vatican was the devil's house and that the Pope was the devil's minion and spokesperson. And he also left the public and entered the private through baptism, and he went on a mission against the Vatican. He went on a mission against the Vatican and went so far as to nail the information that he wrote and found about the Vatican. He would nail it to the door. He would nail it to the doors of the church for all of the patrons to see. Now, this is a quote from Martin Luther, and I would like you guys to read this on your own, and I would like you to take your time, because the point here is that these individuals were warning us about the things that we're dealing with now and how to deal with them. So please read this quote, and I'll give you a few minutes to do that, because you need this. You need your minds to record this stuff. So let me shut up and let you read it. Okay, right? Now, some of you might still be reading, and that's cool. But notice that he didn't say he understood. He was proud. It doesn't say he tempted. It doesn't say he hated. Okay, it doesn't say he was a liar. It doesn't say he was most busy. It doesn't say he was the ape. It doesn't say he had power over nature. It said has, is, currently. And this is in the times that Martin Luther was here, but definitely after ancient Mesopotamia. This is Martin Luther's warning people that the devil exists currently in his times. He was trying to tell people that the devil is real. He was trying to tell people the devil's in here. This is where he is. he was trying to tell people what was going on, and that everything that the Pope and the church was setting up was the devil's plan, and that the devil existed for real, exists for real. Okay? That was Martin Luther's mission, and I read his story. It is a really wild and wacky story, but I am discussing the points of his life and what he did and how it's relevant to what we're doing. Okay? When you talk about the Sesta KV trust and the birth certificates and the accounts and all of that, please realize that even if you are bright enough to come up with the fact that the Vatican is evil and that they're running all of this and that it's their fault and that they did this, right? Please realize that the devil is real and physical, and that's whose church that is, man. Please. Please realize that. Please go on your journey and adventure knowing this. Do not take any steps without having this in mind. This is who you're going up against and his minions. Beings that live thousands, tens of thousands of years and have bred with other beings and have had offspring that have carried on families and legacies. And listen, man, these individuals were trying to warn us about the things that we're dealing with now. I'm just saying. And then you have to think and consider and contemplate on how is that? Why did they do that? What made them think that it wouldn't be fixed by now? Or that what made them think that people would need it after they passed away? Because it's scary that when you read the information on these individuals and what they had to say, that the things that they had to say were all relevant to right now, to what we're dealing with right now. This is why these individuals, I call them our ancestors, because they dealt with what we're dealing with right now. They did what we're doing right now. What I'm saying to you is that getting pulled over, dealing with cops, dealing with judges, dealing with mortgage companies, dealing with banks is all way deeper than any of you think. Then listen. I'm I'm teaching you how real all of this is and what reality really is. You have to know what it is that you're trying to get out of. What is it that you're trying to get away from? What is it that you're freeing yourself from exactly? You don't want to know that? You don't need to know that? Because what it is what it is that evil operates in such a way that most people can't understand. You just know that your life messes up all the time. You just know that things never go right, or when they're going right, that's when they're about to go wrong. Or, it's way deeper. It's everything is way deeper than you think, right? And instead of somebody saying, "Yo, shit is deep, right? Everything is deeper than." No, instead of saying it, why don't you explain how it is that everything is deeper than I think? First of all, how do you know what I think? And then, how are you confident that it's deeper than whatever it is that I think? See, people saying, "Yo, it's deep. Yo, it gets deep. Yo, it's real deep. It's deep, 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 deep." Right? Listen, man. Listen, man. The way my mind thinks, for somebody to talk to me like that, it would actually be offensive to hear that. You want to know why? Because I want you to explain yourself. Because first of all, you said deep like you know something more. So why you not saying? Exactly. So what I'm telling you guys, right, is how deep the quote unquote process is. Who and what you're dealing with and what reality really is. And I'm using these individuals to show you that there are records, ancient, medieval, and recent, that are telling you the same thing that I'm telling you. Anybody ancient telling you to be a sovereign citizen? Anybody ancient or medieval telling you to be a secure party creditor? Anybody, any of them bring up, listen, man, you gotta look at, you gotta really look at things, man. There's only two sides, okay? If you think there's a third side, you're an idiot. The people that think there's a third side are idiots. It's good versus evil. It's light versus dark. Public versus the private. Kingdom of hell versus the kingdom of heaven. Okay? Right? And so there is no sovereign citizen, secured party, self-governing side. It's retarded. Okay? It's retarded. You're either good or you're evil, man. All right? And so that is realistic. That is thinking realistically. Okay? Right? And so these individuals are, and then you have to think about these individuals' positions. What were they? They were priests, they were kings, right? And how did they get to these positions? By opposing evil, by stepping forward, by stepping out. Now we get to King James. I'm going to talk about King James now, right? King James was a demon hunter. His main interest was witches in particular. Once he took the throne of England, the word was out that now it was James who was the hunted, simply because every witch and warlock and sorcerer and demon and were after him at this point. Okay? Because the famous witch hunter, demon hunter, became king of England, and that would mean that he had the power to make some very big positive changes. Mind you, he was the king of two places. He was the king of Scotland first, and then became the king of England. Right? Now, here's what happened. Once word got to James that there was a price on his head, right, by the witches and warlocks and demons and sorcerers, right, he, and mind you, I don't care who you are, finding out that all of the witches and demons in the world are after you is scary, okay? So, what he did was, he would meet with his knights in secret, because he did not know who to trust. So he met with his knights in secret at nighttime, when everybody was sleeping, to discuss what to do. Right? Okay. Mind you, the fact that he met with his knights in secret at nighttime is where the rumors. This is just like tabloids. Okay, this is just like tabloids, and TMZ and rumors and entertainment. It's the same thing, man. But that's where the rumors came from of him being homosexual, because he would go meet in secret with a group of with men every night. But what he was doing was, they were coming up with ways to protect him and humanity, mankind, from evil, and to make sure that he wasn't assassinated. Okay? So what they did was, he found out that, the most powerful weapon against evil was the Aramaic Bible, right? So what he did was he had the most intelligent of his knights translate the Aramaic Bible into English so that he could use it to defend himself against evil. Okay? That translated version of the Aramaic Bible is called the 1611. It was designed in such a way that it was to be used against witchcraft and spells and sorcery. So that is why the 1611 looks funny, why it has so much information in it, and why it is so weird, and why there's so many pictures and Hebrew symbols, is because it's more than just the Bible, okay? It's one of the most powerful weapons created ever in history on this planet to be used against evil. Okay? Now, before he had the 1611 created, he wrote a book called Demonology, right? Because he wanted to teach people what was going on and his experiences from his job or profession, should I say. Now, this is where it gets really, really, really interesting. Okay? Oh my gosh. I have my particular notes, right? I have my particular notes from, excuse me, I dropped something, right? I have my particular notes for this section. Okay. Now, oh, what happened? Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah, so I'm going to read now. This is an excerpt from King James's book, Demonology. Okay? And this is describing the devil and his powers and the things that he does. Okay, so it says, but to return to the purpose, as these forms where the devil obliges himself, and it says Satan, obliges himself to the greatest of the magicians, are wonderfully curious. So are the effects correspondent unto the same. For he will oblige himself to teach them arts and sciences, which he may easily do, being so learned a knave as he is. Okay. To carry them news from any part of the world, which is, now listen, right? These are the things, the powers, these are the things that the devil does, okay? For the people who contract with him, okay? He carries them news from any part of the world, which is somewhat like the CIA does, okay? And TV, internet, and radio, okay? Which the agility of a spirit may easily perform, to reveal to them the secrets of any persons. Now, mind you, I'm gonna send you a copy of Demonology. You're gonna read all of this stuff, man. And mind you, Demonology was created he wrote Demonology in 1605, and it was published in 1609, and then the 1611 was published, no, He wrote the 1611 was translated in 1609. Demonology he wrote in 1605. The 1611 was published in 1611. Okay, right. Now, so being they be once spoken, for the thought none knows but God, except so far as ye may guess by their countenance, as one who is doubtlessly enough, learned enough in physiognomy. Woo! And this is the description, right, of how they obtain the private information of persons, right? Okay. So carrying news from any part of the world is TV, internet, radio. Now, let's talk about that. These are the things that the devil does for those that contract with him. Carries them news from any part of the world. Let's talk about that, right? Guess who had the first printing press? The first printing press. The devil, the Vatican. The Vatican had the first printing press. First radio station? Take a wild guess. The Vatican. Yeah. so please put these puzzle pieces together. Mind you, King James, before the Bible was created, that so many people are so upset about, before the Bible, let's consider this book called Demonology, where he warns us about what we're dealing with right now. Okay, next. Okay, so it says, yes, he will make his scholars to creep in credit with princes by foretelling them many great things, part true and part false. For if all were false, he would credit at all hands, but always doubts them as his oracles were. Make his scholars to creep in credit with princes? That's not commerce, man. Okay. And he will also make them to please princes by fair banquets and dainty dishes carried in short space from the farthest part of the world. And you know the banquets that they have and how they import food from other parts of the world and certain delicacies, and that's what he's talking about. The devil does that for the people that contract with him. King James is warning us about these things. Interestingly enough, right? Let me continue. For no man doubts but he is a thief, and his agility, as I spake before, makes him to come such speed, which is to say that when people contract with the devil, when people want these things, when they sincerely go to the devil for assistance, he comes quickly, is what that means. Okay? Such like he will guard his scholars. And when we say his scholars, we mean those that are directly under him, that he uses to run things. Right? Such like he will guard his scholars with fair armies of horsemen and footmen in appearance. Is that not army and police? Castles and forts, which all are but impressions in the air, easily gathered by a spirit drawing so near to that substance himself, as in like manner he will learn them many jugglery tricks and cards and dice and such like, which is gambling. So let's talk about something. We covered TV, internet, radio. We covered the CIA, right, and the FBI. We covered commerce and gambling. We covered the rich, and we covered the armies and the police. This is in 1605. King James was warning us in the book that he wrote called Demonology, was warning us that this was the devil doing this, that created these things, and this is what he provides for those that contract with him. And that is what we're dealing with now. Please put these puzzle pieces together. After this book called Demonology, right? He was hunted by all the witches and warlocks and sorcerers and demons in the world on the planet. Was scared shitless. Found out what the most powerful weapon was against evil on the planet. Couldn't understand it. Can't use it to defend myself against evil. We're going to need this in English. Created the 1611. Please, people, put these puzzle pieces together, man. Okay? Again. As in like manner he will learn them many jugglery tricks at cards, dice, and the such like, to deceive men's senses thereby, and such innumerable false practices which are proven by over many in this age. Now, as to the magician's part of the contract, it is in a word, that thing which I have said before, the devil hunts for in all men. One word only I omitted concerning the form of making this contract, which is either written with the magician's own blood, or else being agreed upon in terms, his schoolmaster touches him in some part, thought peradventure no mark remain, as it does with all witches. And I'm not going to talk about that word either. Right, and so I'm not gonna tell you what the word is, but the thing that he hunts for in all men is their souls, man. And I have to say that that's gonna conclude the ancestral part of our learning here in this school, and tonight's relevance is that everything that we are going to study afterwards are going to be rooted in the knowledge and wisdom of these ancient masters. And when you put together their lives, their books, you know, what they said, their warnings, you're going to see what it is that you're dealing with now. You're going to see why, and look, I don't like doing this. I don't like doing this, okay? I don't like comparing what they're learning here in this school to what other people are learning from other teachers and others, other people who are teaching things, right? I don't like comparing, but I have to say, yeah, there's a but. I have to say that these people are being led into darkness, or that's like, you know what that's like? That's like me having beef with like a well-known gang in my hood, right? And and I get in a I get in a minivan and I drive to you guys where you guys live, and I just tell y'all to get in the van and come with me. We're gonna fight these dudes, right? And y'all don't have no guns, no weapons, or nothing. I just, I just come to get you and take you to where we supposed to fight with these dudes at. That's what's happening to these people that's talking about, well, Machete, what am I supposed to do? I filed my UCCs and I'm already a secured party creditor. And listen, son, these dudes are taking y'all into battle with demons and devils and witches and sorcerers and shit, son. And they're not telling you that. They're not telling you how real they are. They're not teaching you how to deal with them on their level. And people are wondering why they're failing. They're wondering why they're stuck and don't know what to do next, because these guys are leaving God out of it. They're leaving Christ out of it. Of course you're freaking stuck. Of course you don't know what's next. Because if baptism is not involved in your process of redemption and your process of salvation and your process of leaving the public and entering the private, if baptism is not part of that process, okay, if following Christ is not part of that process, if joining God is not part of that process, if becoming a citizen of the kingdom of heaven is not part of that process, they are wrong. And they are being led into darkness. They are going into a war with no weapons. You know what? You know what? You know what a better example is? You know what a better example is? Matter of fact, I'm going to give you a better example. I got beef with this gang in my hood, South Jamaica, Queens, right? And I get in the minivan to come get y'all, and I tell you to bring all your paperwork. Bring all your paperwork. Bring your paperwork with you, right? And just come with me. Right? And we go to meet these dudes where we're supposed to fight at, and all y'all got is papers. Yeah, son. Some of these gang members, listen, they perform blood sacrifices and they do spells and voodoo and all that shit too, man. Yeah, the gangs especially, man. And I tell y'all, so what do we need to bring? I need to bring my gun, machete. Nah, just bring your paperwork. All you need is your paperwork. You hear how ridiculous that sounds? Huh? Do you hear how ridiculous that sounds? That's how ridiculous secured party creditor, sovereign citizen, I have all my paperwork sounds to me. It's how ridiculous it sounds to me. And that concludes tonight's class. I love you guys. Study all your stuff. Make sure you read all of this. I'm going to send you everybody's book and all of the files for you. And see you next time. Same bat time, same bat channel. Right?
turn it off.